The air in the Greensboro, North Carolina attorney's office tasted like stale coffee and corporate greed. Ella Greyson sat rigidly in the leather chair, her 5 feet 4 inches slender frame feeling swallowed by the expanse of the room. She adjusted the maternity blouse draping over her 16-week bump. Inside her, a tiny life fluttered, a sharp contrast to the crushing weight of death that had settled into her bones a month ago. At 38, Ella was a widow. Her husband, Aaron, had been ripped away in a blinding flash of fire and twisted metal at the local chemical manufacturing plant. They had been married for 5 beautiful years, a love story born in the casual chaos of their college days at UNC Greensboro. Now he was gone, and she was left with his sharp facial features mirrored in her own reflection, her natural hair tied back in a weary puff, and a broken heart that bled a little more each day. "Mrs. Greyson, let's be realistic," the lead defense attorney said, leaning forward. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The investigation into the factory explosion is inconclusive. This settlement offer is more than generous. But it requires your signature on the non-disclosure agreement, today." "Inconclusive?" Ella's voice trembled, but her coffee complexion flushed with sudden hot anger. "Aaron submitted 3 separate safety violation reports about that pressure valve 6 months ago. He told me they ignored him to keep the assembly line moving." The lawyer's expression hardened. "Accusations without proof can be legally actionable, Mrs. Greyson. If you pursue a trial, we will drag this out for years. Can your pregnancy handle that stress? Can your bank account? Sign, take the money for your unborn child, and let it go. If you speak to the press, we will countersue for everything you have." The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Ella looked down at her hands. As a physical therapist, she spent her days helping people heal, guiding them through pain to find strength. But looking at the document in front of her, she felt utterly paralyzed. She needed the money to provide for the child growing inside of her. She couldn't fight a billion-dollar conglomerate alone. With a trembling hand, she signed away her right to Aaron's truth. 10 minutes later, Ella was pulled into a hug so fierce it nearly knocked the breath from her. "Let me at them. Just give me 2 minutes in that boardroom, Elle. I will show them exactly what a Nigerian woman thinks of their little threats," Achebe Ifeanyi hissed, her vibrant voice vibrating with pure protective fury. Angelia, at 35, was a force of nature. She was outgoing, devastatingly funny, and fiercely loyal. The two had met 7 years prior at a local gym. After a grueling cardio session, they had both independently driven to the same local bakery, ordering identical bear claw pastries. Catching each other's eyes in the parking lot, mid-bite, they had burst out laughing at the sheer ridiculousness of trying to outtrain a sweet tooth. They had been inseparable ever since. Angelia had been the maid of honor at Ella's wedding. And just 1 week ago she had held Ella's hand in the OB/GYN clinic, crying tears of fierce joy and deep sorrow right along with her, when the ultrasound technician revealed it was a boy. "It's over, Angel," Ella whispered, leaning into her best friend as they walked out to the parking lot. "I signed it. I had to. I have to think about my baby." "You did what you had to do to protect my godson," Angelia said, her tone softening instantly as she wiped a tear from Ella's cheek. "But those bastards haven't won. Come on. You're staying at my place tonight. I'm making jollof rice, and you are going to put your feet up." As Angelia drove them toward her upscale home, she kept glancing at her phone. "Listen, my older brother is staying at my place for the next 2 weeks. He's in town from the Charlotte headquarters looking at some real estate expansion." Ella groaned slightly. "The tech titan?" "Yes, his royal coldness," Angelia sighed. Achebe Ifeanyi was 41, brilliant, and notoriously unyielding. At 26, determined to prove he didn't need their father's immense wealth or political influence back in Nigeria, Achebe had started Omnibyte Technologies in a damp Charlotte basement while working a grueling day job as an analyst. Now, 15 years later, Omnibyte was a global powerhouse specializing in advanced data and AI development, valued well north of $6 billion. Achebe was a man of logic, algorithms, and absolute efficiency. He viewed emotional outbursts as liabilities, and unproductive people as a complete waste of time. He loved his sister, but he completely tuned out her personal life. "Just ignore him," Angelia advised. "He lives in his laptop anyway." When they arrived at the house, the atmosphere shifted. The air smelled of expensive cologne and cedarwood. Achebe Ifeanyi stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, a phone pressed to his ear. He was strikingly handsome, tall, with a deep, dark complexion, a perfectly groomed beard, and eyes that looked like they could look right through solid steel. Execute the acquisition by Tuesday, or pull the funding. Achebe snapped into the phone, his voice a deep, commanding baritone. He hung up, barely glancing at them. Angelia, you're late. We were supposed to review the Q3 projected data for the global expansion an hour ago. Achebe, this is my best friend, Ella, Angelia said, ignoring his complaint entirely. Ella, this is my brother, the human calculator. Ella offered a polite, tired nod. Nice to meet you, Achebe. Achebe's sharp eyes flicked over Ella. He noted the tear-stained cheeks, the exhaustion radiating from her posture, and the undeniable curve of her pregnancy. To Achebe, she represented everything he avoided: emotional turmoil, and a situation that couldn't be solved with a line of code. Likewise, Achebe said formally, his tone completely devoid of emotion. He turned back to his sister. Angelia, the boardroom demands efficiency. Your personal distractions are hindering. Achebe. Angelia interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically sharp. Ella just had to sign away her late husband's justice to a corrupt corporation, because they threatened her, so your data can wait. Achebe froze. He looked back at Ella. For a split second, something unreadable crossed his stoic face, but it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by his usual impenetrable mask. I see. My condolences for your loss, Mrs. Greyson. However, emotional decisions rarely yield positive legal outcomes. Ella's sorrow suddenly burned away, replaced by a spark of defiance. She stood up a little straighter, looking the billionaire dead in the eye. It wasn't an emotional decision, Mr. Ifeanyi. It was a survival tactic for my son. I'm sure a man who only calculates profit wouldn't understand the value of protecting something that doesn't have a price tag. Achebe blinked, genuinely caught off guard. No one spoke to him like that. Before he could respond, Ella turned to Angelia. I think I'm just going to go lie down in the guest room, Angel. Go ahead, babe. I'll bring you some tea, Angelia said, glaring at her brother as Ella walked down the hall. Once Ella was out of earshot, Angelia stepped up to Achebe, poking him hard in the chest. You are a brilliant businessman, Achebe, but sometimes you are an absolute idiot. Her husband died in that factory explosion downtown a month ago, the one the news is burying. Achebe frowned. The Apex manufacturing incident? Yes. Ella Greyson reported safety violations 6 months before it blew up. They covered it up, and today their lawyers forced her to sign an NDA just to get her insurance and settlement money. Achebe stood in silence, his mind suddenly shifting gears. He didn't care about emotional drama, but he hated systemic inefficiency, and he despised corporate bullies who manipulated data to hide corporate manslaughter. More than that, the memory of Ella's fierce, coffee-dark eyes, refusing to back down from his icy stare, lingered in his mind. An NDA? Achebe murmured, his analytical brain already spinning. They think they bought her silence. They did, Angelia said sadly. Achebe looked toward the hallway where Ella had disappeared. A strange, unfamiliar pull tugged at his chest. For the first time in 15 years, he found himself thinking about something entirely unrelated to his company's bottom line. An NDA protects them from her sharing the information, Achebe said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. It does not protect them from an independent, anonymous AI-driven data audit of their servers. Angelia's eyes widened. Achebe, are you saying what I think you're saying? I am saying, Achebe said, cracking his knuckles as he opened his laptop, that I do not like being told what I can and cannot understand. Let's see what Apex Manufacturing is hiding. Achebe Ifeanyi did not operate within the slow, bureaucratic boundaries of the legal system. To him, the world was governed by data, and data always left a trail. Safe within the confines of his home office, Achebe activated Aegis, a proprietary, highly advanced AI data mining algorithm he had originally developed for global corporate espionage defense. He programmed the AI with a single objective: breach, isolate, and extract all internal communications, maintenance logs, and financial ledgers from Apex Manufacturing over the past 24 months. For 3 days, Aegis worked silently in the background, bypassing the factory's outdated firewalls. When the algorithm finally compiled the data, what Achebe found was sickening. System log extract, Apex Manufacturing, October 14th. Safety report ID, number 8842, filed by Ella Greyson, pressure valve malfunction. October 16th. Status changed to, resolved by management. No physical inspection recorded. November 2nd. Internal memo. Delaying valve replacement saves $412,000 in Q4. Run at 110% capacity. February 11th. Catastrophic failure warning triggered. Override initiated by corporate server. Ella Greyson's voice echoed through the digital breadcrumbs. Achebe found the 3 specific safety violation reports Ella had filed 6 months before his death, explicitly warning that the main pressure valves were failing. Even worse, Achebe uncovered a hidden corporate ledger detailing an offshore slush fund. There were direct wire transfers earmarked as mitigation expenses, the exact dollar amounts used to pay off local safety inspectors to sign off on fraudulent compliance certificates. Finally, he unearthed a string of panicked emails between the factory's CEO and their legal team immediately following the explosion, explicitly stating, "The widow has the original copies of the October reports. Threaten her with a countersuit and force the NDA. If she goes public, we are ruined." They hadn't just been negligent, they had calculated the cost of Aaron's life and decided it was cheaper than fixing the hardware. Armed with the evidence, Achebe began spending his evenings at Angelia's house, sitting at the dining table with Ella to meticulously review the findings. He needed her to verify names and dates from Aaron, Kerr's old notebooks to match the digital files. The shared mission forced a shift between them. The icy, untouchable billionaire was fading, replaced by a man who showed a quiet, intense devotion to securing justice for her. Ella found herself watching the sharp line of his jaw, the focus in his dark eyes, and the surprising gentleness in his deep voice whenever he asked if she needed to rest. For Achebe, Ella was a revelation. She was grieving, yet entirely unbroken. Her resilience, combined with the soft beauty of her coffee complexion and the fiercely intelligent way she analyzed the data, drew him in like a moth to a flame. He found himself looking forward to the evenings, his strict rules about unproductive people completely forgotten. Angelia, naturally, noticed everything. One evening, as Ella walked to the kitchen to fetch water, passing Achebe, who stood up automatically to clear a path for her, their shoulders brushed. A tangible spark of static tension hung in the air. Achebe's eyes lingered on Ella a fraction of a second too long. Angelia leaned against the doorframe, a massive smirk on her face. "You know, if you two look at each other any harder, you're going to burn holes right through my custom wallpaper. The air in here is thicker than my jollof rice." "Angelia, be quiet." Ella blushed, keeping her eyes on her glass. "I am just making an observation, my dear godmother," Angelia teased, winking. "A very beautiful, highly charged observation." The real explosion, however, happened 2 days later at Ella's bungalow. Achebe had driven over alone to show her a newly decrypted audio file of the factory foreman admitting the valves were faulty. As the audio played, finishing with the confirmation of Aaron's integrity, a tear slipped down Ella's cheek. "He was right," she whispered. "He was trying to save them." "He was a good man, Ella," Achebe said softly, turning to her. Ella looked up, her heart hammering against her ribs. The grief was there, but beneath it was a profound gratitude for the man sitting next to her. "Thank you, Achebe, for everything." The space between them vanished. Drawn by an irresistible magnetism, Achebe leaned down, and Ella met him halfway. The kiss was passionate, a sudden release of weeks of buried tension, longing, and an undeniable burning attraction. Achebe's hand cupped her face, his thumb stroking her coffee-toned skin, while Ella's hand rested against his chest, feeling the frantic beat of his heart. But just as the kiss deepened, Achebe gently pulled back, his breathing ragged. He rested his forehead against hers. "Ella, I cannot rush this. You have been through too much, and you deserve time. I want you, but I will not take advantage of your vulnerability." He left shortly after, leaving them both completely consumed by thoughts of the kiss. Ella barely slept, her lips still tingling, realizing she was falling for her best friend's brother. Achebe sat in his car for an hour, his mind completely unanchored by a woman for the first time in his life. The next morning, Ella confessed everything to Angelia over the phone. "I knew it!" Angelia shrieked happily, loud enough to wake the neighbors. "Oh, Elle, I am so happy. He is a stubborn block of wood, but he has a huge heart, and he is completely gone for you." Armed with this information, Angelia marched straight into Achebe's temporary office at the Omnibite Greensboro branch later that afternoon. She slammed her hands on his desk. "You kissed her and then you walked away?" Angelia demanded. Achebe didn't look up from his tablet, though his posture stiffened. "I am being respectful of her situation." "Achebe, listen to me," Angelia said, her voice dropping its usual humor, becoming deeply earnest. Ella is a strong woman. She knows her mind. She is attracted to you, and you are terrified because you can't control these feelings with an algorithm. Stop running from your true feelings. If you want her, show her. Take her out. Treat her like the queen she is. Achebe remained silent for a long moment after Angelia left the room. Finally, he set his tablet down. For once, the data was clear. He was entirely in love with Ella Greyson. An hour later, Ella received a text message. I would be honored if you would allow me to take you to dinner tomorrow evening. A proper date. I will have a car pick you up at 7. Achebe. When the town car pulled up to Ella's home at 7, her nerves were on fire. She had chosen a maternity dress made of soft yellow silk that complemented her rich coffee complexion beautifully. The dress fell elegantly over her bump, while her natural hair was styled into a soft halo-like afro puff, held by a gold filigree band. She wore minimalist gold jewelry and sharp defined makeup that accentuated her striking facial features. When she stepped out of the front door, Achebe was standing by the car door, waiting. Seeing her took the breath entirely out of his lungs. Achebe, immaculate in a tailored midnight blue Tom Ford suit with an open-collar white shirt, completely forgot his vocabulary. The sheer elegance radiating from her, the glow of her pregnancy, and the grace with which she carried herself struck him like a physical blow. Ella, he breathed, stepping forward, his serious demeanor completely melting away. You are absolutely breathtaking. The sight of Achebe made Ella's knees weak. The tailored suit accentuated his tall, broad-shouldered frame, and his dark skin contrasted sharply against the crisp white of his shirt. His neatly groomed beard gave him a rugged, intensely masculine edge. But it was his eyes that caught her. The way they locked onto her with an intensity that made her feel like she was the only woman existing in the world. You look incredible yourself, Achebe, she said, offering a warm smile. He took her to Printworks Bistro, but instead of the main dining area, Achebe had reserved the private, enclosed garden terrace, illuminated by hundreds of twinkling fairy lights, and filled with the scent of fresh white roses. The conversation flowed effortlessly. They didn't talk about data, or the factory. Instead, Achebe spoke of his childhood in Nigeria, his early failures, and his dreams for the future. Ella spoke of her passion for helping her patients heal, and her hopes for her unborn son. By the time the main course was cleared, the remaining walls between them had completely crumbled. 3 days after their date, Achebe's calculated strike against Apex Manufacturing went live. Rather than going to the local police, Achebe routed the encrypted files directly to the federal authorities, the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA), and the Department of Justice, while simultaneously leaking the unredacted documents to major global news outlets. The fallout was catastrophic for the corporation. The Department of Justice immediately levied criminal charges against the CEO and board of directors for corporate manslaughter and conspiracy to obstruct justice. The EPA slammed the factory with a record-breaking $450 million fine for environmental negligence and systemic safety violations. Furthermore, the federal court officially voided Ella's non-disclosure agreement, ruling that it had been signed under extreme corporate duress and illegal threats. Armed with Achebe's uncovered evidence, a class-action lawsuit was launched. The court ordered Apex Manufacturing to pay Ella a massive, unprecedented punitive settlement of $45 million for wrongful death, emotional distress, and fraudulent coercion, ensuring that she and her son would want for nothing for the rest of their lives. That evening the celebration was quiet, held at Ella's home. Angelia had popped a bottle of champagne for herself, while Ella and Achebe toasted with sparkling cider. After Angelia left, letting out a loud dramatic yawn, and claiming she needed to get home to leave the lovebirds alone, Achebe and Ella stood out on the back porch, looking out at the quiet Greensboro night. It's over, Ella whispered, a tear of pure relief slipping down her cheek. Aaron can rest now, and my son, he's safe. Achebe stepped up behind her, wrapping his large, warm arms around her waist, his hands resting gently over her bump. You are both safe. I will always ensure you are safe. Ella turned around in his embrace, looking up into his dark, handsome face. I don't know how to thank you, Achebe. Do not thank me, he murmured, his voice thick with raw emotion. He leaned down, capturing her lips in a deep, agonizingly passionate kiss. It tasted of victory, of a future, and of a profound, unyielding devotion. As his hands held her close, pressing her frame against his, the words swelled up in Achebe's chest, overriding every analytical, logical defense mechanism he had ever built. He pulled back just an inch, his eyes burning with an intensity that terrified and thrilled him. He looked at her, his voice a rough whisper against her lips. Ella, I I am entirely yours. The words "I love you" hovered on the very edge of his breath, unsaid but completely understood, written in the stars above them, and the certain promise of their tomorrow. 1 month after the truth about Apex Manufacturing was brought to light, the hot North Carolina summer gave way to a crisp golden autumn. Ella's bungalow was fully prepared, the nursery painted a soft, calming blue, filled with everything a newborn could ever need. But the true shift was in Ella's heart. The heavy shroud of grief had finally lifted, replaced by the warm, steady presence of Achebe, who had seamlessly woven himself into her life. It happened at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning. A sharp, undeniable wave of pain woke Ella from a deep sleep. Within 30 minutes, they were at the Women's Hospital in Greensboro. Achebe, who could successfully navigate a billion-dollar international corporate merger without blinking, looked entirely terrified. His usual stoic composure was completely shattered. He paced the polished floors of the waiting room, his long strides eating up the space, his fingers furiously running through his beard. For a man who ruled the world through control, the unpredictability of childbirth was an agonizing exercise in helplessness. Inside the delivery room, however, Angelia was in her absolute element. "Breathe, Elle, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Just like we practiced at the gym, except no bear claws after this," Angelia commanded, holding Ella's hand with a grip of steel. She was the perfect birth coach, alternating between fierce, drill sergeant encouragement and tenderly wiping the sweat from Ella's brow. "You are a warrior, Ella. You've got this. My godson is ready to meet the world." After hours of intense labor, with one final monumental push from Ella, the room was suddenly filled with a sound that shattered the lingering ghosts of the past. It was a loud, piercing, remarkably robust cry. The doctor smiled, lifting the baby up. "He's got a phenomenal pair of lungs, Mum, perfectly healthy." Tears streamed down Ella's face as the nurse placed the slippery, warm bundle onto her bare chest. Angelia let out a joyous sob, immediately kissing Ella's forehead. A few moments later, after the baby was cleaned and wrapped in a warm blanket, the door cracked open. Achebe stepped in, looking unusually fragile as his eyes landed on Ella and the child. "Come here," Ella whispered, her voice tired but glowing. Achebe walked over to the bedside, slowly sinking onto the edge of the mattress. He looked down at the tiny boy, who had a thick tuft of dark hair and sharp, distinct features, just like his mother. "What is his name?" Achebe asked, his baritone voice thick with an emotion he could no longer suppress. Ella looked down at her son, then up at Achebe. "His name is Josiah Aaron Greyson." Josiah reflecting renewal and divine mercy, and Aaron to honor his father. Achebe swallowed hard, a single rare tear slipping into his beard. He reached out, his large, dark hand gently cradling the baby's tiny head, before he looked up to meet Ella's eyes. "Ella," Achebe said, his voice raw and fiercely intentional. "I cannot run from this anymore. I am entirely, completely in love with you. I don't just want to be a part of your life. I want to protect you, cherish you, and take care of both you and Josiah for the rest of my days. If you will have me, I am yours." Ella's heart swelled, the last broken pieces of her past fully mending. She reached up, placing her hand over his. "I love you too, Achebe. More than I ever thought I could love again. We are already yours." From the corner of the room, Angelia sniffed loudly, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "Oh, thank goodness. Now I can finally stop playing matchmaker and start being the glamorous godmother." 2 years later, the landscape of Ella's life had completely transformed. With a portion of her settlement and the unwavering strategic backing of her brilliant partner, Ella officially opened the Greyson Wellness Center, a state-of-the-art physical therapy facility in Greensboro dedicated to holistic rehabilitation and community health. It was a soaring success, a testament to her dedication to healing others. But her professional milestone was quickly followed by the true event of the season, her wedding to Achebe Ifeanyi. The stateside wedding was held at the historic Grandover Resort in Greensboro. It was an elaborate, modern fairy tale. Ella walked down the aisle in a custom, floor-length mermaid gown of pure white silk that accentuated her curves, her natural hair styled into an intricate, elegant updo adorned with tiny pearls. Achebe stood at the altar in a crisp, custom-made black tuxedo, watching her approach with a look of pure, unadulterated adoration. 2-year-old Josiah, looking dapper in a miniature tuxedo of his own, toddled down the aisle as the ring-bearer, directly into the waiting arms of his godmother Angelia, who wore a stunning maid-of-honor gown. But the celebration was far from over. The following week, the entire wedding party jetted off to Enugu, Nigeria, for the traditional Igbo wedding ceremony. A spectacular, vibrant affair that dwarfed the stateside celebration in sheer scale and color. The Ifeanyi family compound was transformed into a paradise of gold, coral, and emerald green. Ella was breathless as she was dressed in traditional attire, a magnificent, heavily beaded wrapper, a matching blouse, and an elaborate, towering gilet, head tie, that framed her sharp facial features beautifully. Her coffee skin radiated against the rich coral beads adorning her neck and wrists. Achebe was a king reborn in a matching, richly embroidered agbada and a traditional red cap. The ceremony was a sensory masterpiece. The air was thick with the rich, aromatic scents of roasting meats, pounded yam, and authentic Nigerian jollof rice. The thunderous beat of traditional drums vibrated through the earth as dancers moved in perfect unison. Achebe's parents, high society figures who valued substance above all else, completely fell in love with Ella the moment they met her. They saw her fierce intelligence, her grace, and the profound joy she brought to their notoriously stoic son. During the Igba Nokwo, wine-carrying ceremony, Ella navigated the massive crowd, searching for her husband. When she found Achebe sitting among the elders, she knelt gracefully, offering him the wooden cup of palm wine. He took it, drank it fully to the cheers of hundreds of guests, and then pulled her to her feet, placing a matching coral necklace around her throat. Achebe's father stepped forward, lifting little Josiah up into his arms, loudly declaring to the crowd that this boy was now a son of the Ifeanyi house, blessed by the ancestors. Their honeymoon was spent traversing the breathtaking landscapes of Nigeria, from the rolling, misty hills of the Obudu mountain resort to the vibrant cultural hubs of Lagos. Achebe took pride in showing Ella his homeland, the place that had shaped his drive and ambition. On their final night in Nigeria, sitting on a private balcony overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, Achebe held Ella close against his chest. The warm tropical breeze swept over them, carrying the rhythmic sound of the crashing waves below. Little Josiah was fast asleep in the room behind them, exhausted from a day of being spoiled by his doting grandparents. "Ella," Achebe began softly, his voice deep and steady, "there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about. It's about Josiah." Ella tilted her head slightly, her heart pounding. "What is it?" Achebe took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "I want to adopt him." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You do?" He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Yes. I love him. From the moment I saw his tiny face, I knew I wanted him in my life forever. I want Josiah to grow up knowing how brave his father was, to carry that strength and integrity. And I want to be the one to protect and nurture him, to give him the future Aaron believed in. I want him to know he's loved." "Thank you, I am honored," Ella whispered. Achebe leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Then it's settled. I will contact my attorney tomorrow. Are you happy, my queen?" Achebe whispered into her hair, his strong arms tightening securely around her waist. Ella looked out at the vast, beautiful ocean, then turned to kiss her husband's cheek. "Yes, wherever you and our son are, is the place where my happiness is." Achebe's breath hitched at her words. He turned her gently in his arms so she was facing him, his dark eyes burning with a deep, consuming intensity. He reached up, his large hand cupping her jawline, his thumb softly tracing her coffee-toned skin. "I love you, Ella," he murmured, his voice thick with raw emotion, stripping away every ounce of the guarded corporate titan he used to be. "I love you more than life itself. You and Josiah are my entire world." Tears of pure joy pricked Ella's eyes as she looked up into the face of the man who had fought for her, healed with her, and built a fortress around her heart. "I love you too, Achebe. With everything I have, I love you." Achebe leaned down and captured her lips in a deep, passionate kiss that sealed their spoken vows beneath the African sky. It was a kiss full of their past victories, their present peace, and the beautiful, unbroken future they were building together. And that brings us to the end of Ella and Achebe's journey today. If you haven't had the pleasure of exploring their beginnings, I encourage you to check out the story. I promise you won't be disappointed. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me, my cultured pearls. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, and share it with someone who appreciates the beauty of our blended traditions. Our quest to grow our channel can only be achieved with your incredible support. Every like, share, and subscribe truly means the world to us and allows us to continue bringing you these incredible stories of love. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What part of today's narrative resonated with you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what part of the world you are joining us from. Until next time, keep celebrating the authenticity of love and heritage. Bye for now.